Hey guys, in this video I'm bringing you major spoilers for the final season of Game of Thrones, so if you don't want anything spoiled, it's time for you to close this video. Okay, as most of us know, for the final season of Game of Thrones, the production for the very first time, instead of filming King's Landing scenes in Dubrovnik, they decided to make a huge King's Landing set in Belfast. So why did they build city buildings to resemble the city they used for King's Landing all these years instead of filming at actual medieval old towns as they usually do? That's because Game of Thrones is not allowed to burn cities to the ground, as the construction for King's Landing set focused on polishing the city walls inside the set streets. A famous Dubrovnik landmark has been faithfully reproduced. The most notable are the city gates and the King's Landing dome. However, the set has recently been modified to appear burned down with a huge breach between demolished towers. The city gate has been obliterated and the towers that once protected it have fallen. The Lannister banners that once adored the walls are gone. King's Landing dome has been burned down. This is the final confirmation that the capital is most definitely going to fall, and a big portion of it is going to burn down in the final season. And as speculated for months now, the main suspect behind it all is a dragon who's also been spotted on this set. Yes, dragons are visual effects, magic mostly. However, when performers have to interact with dragons, a number of methods are used to make it work. For example, if Dany had to touch the dragon's head, any dragon head-shaped object will do. This was when dragons were small. This is the Night King touching Viserion's head in the last season. For flying scenes, Emilia Clarke uses a dragon-shaped buck which moves in all the ways as wind is directed in her face. If actors have to actually mount a dragon, part of its spine has to be physically recreated, which is exactly what this massive contraption is. King's Landing set being burned down means that either the Night King with Viserion or Daenerys with Drogon will at one point decide to burn down the capital. This massive contraption being on this very same set means that once again either Dany or the Night King will at some point decide to land in King's Landing. Now that we know for certain that the capital will fall at some point, let's see how it could actually go down. These leaks could be a confirmation of a theory of mine regarding the Night King and his master plan that will eventually result with Cersei's and Jaime's death, and even possibly with the death of Jon Snow. In that video I explained to you how all main characters in Game of Thrones as well as all of us fans expect the great battle to be fought in the north, on a front defined by the advance of the army of the dead, and partly we are correct. The north will face a 100,000 strong army of White Walkers and their whites, but the Night King will fly Viserion to the far south across the old Westeros and will raise the dead, thus the entire continent will be facing a horde of whites overnight. This theory of mine has not only been foreshadowed multiple times throughout the show, but it's also supported with a few visions from the future that are yet to come true. The shadow of a dragon flying over King's Landing, and the one in which Bran sees King's Landing in the winter with an empty throne room that has its roof blown off, the same one that Daenerys saw in the House of the Undying. Basically, the Night King will create a huge army in the south while sacrificing his current army in the north. But let's get a bit back. In the season 7 finale, Cersei revealed to Jaime that Euron only pretended to be heading back to Pike out of fear when he had actually sailed to Essos to hire the Golden Company and to bring them with his armed fleet to Westeros to serve under her commands. This is not coming as a huge surprise, since in the 4th episode of the season, Cersei revealed her intentions to take out a new loan from the Arrow Bank to hire the Golden Company to expand her armies. With their help, Cersei would take the advantage of the war between the living and the dead and would try to retrieve the lands that are currently taken away from her. Basically, while the living are fighting the dead, Cersei will try to, as she calls it, retrieve kingdoms that belong to her with the mercenary organization. In the far north, on the other hand, the Night King has brought down a large section of the wall at Eastwatch, allowing his army to march south, while the most of Westeros has agreed to unite and send their forces north to fight against the only enemy that matters. So we all expect Great War to take place in the north, and we all expect Cersei to quietly rebuild her power while the fighting happens elsewhere. Well, we might be wrong. Now that the Night King is in possession of a dragon and no longer has to worry about the wall, he will most likely cause devastation across the whole Westeros, not only the north. The leader White Walkers can now fly anywhere in Westeros relatively quickly, and he can raise the dead. Not only is this a place where people in most cases don't burn the dead, but due to recent wars ravaging Westeros, there are plenty of corpses laying in mass graves. As I already said, all main characters expect the great battle to be fought in the north on a front defined by the advanced army of the dead, and partly they are correct. The north will face a 100,000 strong army of White Walkers and their whites, but the Night King will fly Viserion to the far south across the whole Westeros and will raise the dead. Thus the entire continent will be facing a horde of whites overnight. Now you might be wondering, how is this event even confirmed, but give me a few moments to explain it to you. Well, prophecies in Game of Thrones don't literally come true, visions on the other hand do. We know this for a fact, as in the 6th episode of the 6th season, after Mira flees the cave with Bran received multiple visions of the past and future events, and one of his visions from the future already came true in the season 6 finale. Bran's vision of the exploding wildfire already came true, as Cersei and Qyburn used it 4 episodes later to destroy the Great Sept of Baelor with majority of her enemies. The remaining 2 visions from the future that are yet to come true are the shadow of a dragon flying over King's Landing, and the one in which Bran sees King's Landing in winter with an empty throne room that has its roof blown off. At first glance, this would imply that Dany does end up reaching and taking over King's Landing eventually, but the crumbled building, the Red Keep, and burned houses with the wintry background are of the major importance. Dany would not destroy the Red Keep in which the Iron Throne is, nor would she burn down houses where innocent people live as per in numerous Season 7 scenes. The damage done to the Red Keep and to the houses, however, is consistent with something that Dany's dragons would be able to do, the main suspect being her dead dragon Viserion. These burns visions, one of which Dany had as well, along with leaked photos in which we can see that big portion of King's Landing will at some point be burned down, pretty much confirm my statement that the Night King will fly Viserion to the far south and raise the dead across all of Westeros, thus leaving Cersei's plan quite a bit ruined and also surprising the entire living side. While the leader of White Walkers is forming an army across all of Westeros, his current army that has in the Season 7 finale finally crossed into the north will in the Season 8 premiere hit and destroy castles of House Umber and House Karstark, just as Jon in the Season 7 premiere said they would if the wall falls. Some would think that his army would be destroyed once it comes across Winterfell, but leaked photos seem to prove otherwise. Now we are coming to the long-anticipated Cersei's downfall and death that will be caused by her becoming the Mad Queen. Upon suffering the tremendous defeat by the current army of the dead, Jon Snow, Dany and crew will retreat south, to either the Riverlands or the Vale. However, they will then learn that the Night King has formed an even bigger army of the dead in the south. Bran Stark will inform them that the Night King is marching his new army on King's Landing. Upon learning this, Jon Snow, Dany and the entire living side will decide to go to the capital to face the great and final battle and thus help Cersei defend it, since it's the largest city with a population of 1 million innocent people. All main characters being at King's Landing at some point of the final season has been confirmed by leaked photos as well. Even though Jon and the entire living side is coming to Cersei's aid, she is preparing a trap for them. Cersei intends to have all her enemies, both the living and the dead, to fight on the streets of King's Landing, while she would use wildfire to burn them all. You might be wondering why would not the Mad Queen, instead of burning everything down, use this meeting as an opportunity to capture and kill her living enemies, and then try to rally the living side and fight the Night King. With or without Jon Snow, their armies would still have to fight and try to win the Great War. So will Cersei use this opportunity to get rid of one of her enemies? The answer is yes, she would most certainly like to do that, but no, she will not be able to capture and execute Jon like she did Ned Stark. The reason being Daenerys Targaryen's presence. It's not only Jon who came to parley with Cersei, he is accompanied by Dany. One leaked photo shows a figure silhouetted in an archway. The figure seems to be Dany herself, as the figure has blonde hair, a dark outfit and a chain across their front. It looks the same to what Dany was wearing last season. I know that you're wondering, so why wouldn't Cersei then capture both Jon and Dany for that matter? The answer is one small detail: they're having a parley in front of a window. HBO is trying to prevent spoilers, and this was a horrible way to do it, so filming this major scene in front of a window must be of the great necessity for the scene. And now we're coming to an answer that will explain to you why Cersei will not be able to use this opportunity to capture her enemies. It's because of Dany's dragons. At some point of filming, crew set green screen across that window, meaning that Cersei will have a clear view on Dany's dragons flying above King's Landing, and therefore if she is to capture and execute any of them, Cersei knows that the Dany's dragons and armies would attack and defeat her. Cersei's plan at this point is to welcome the living side into the capital, and pretend to agree that they shall face the common enemy together. Cersei's plan is to wait in the Red Keep for the army of the dead to breach the city walls, and for the great battle to take place inside the capital. Cersei would then burn down all her enemies, the living and the dead, using wildfire. It's still unknown whether or not Cersei is aware that there's caches of wildfire under the Red Keep itself, even though it would not be surprising if she does. When faced with defeat, Cersei most certainly would not hesitate to blow up King's Landing, even if it means she would die as well. Don't forget that when it appeared that Stannis was winning the battle for King's Landing, Cersei was ready to kill herself along with her child. Will Cersei manage to pull it out and burn everyone down? Even though Burn King's Landing set would seem to support this theory, the answer is no. Wildfire is not the reason King's Landing set is being burned down, it's Dragonfire. How do I know? It's simply due to the fact that the show built a King's Landing set mainly to do live pyrotechnics. It means that some parts of the capital will be burned down by a dragon, as Dragonfire in Game of Thrones is portrayed by live pyrotechnics. Basically, Cersei's plan to have the living and the dead fight inside the King's Landing will come true, but her burning them all with wildfire will not. And I think it could have something to do with her brother, Jaime Lannister, who already saved the city from wildfire before. Jaime saved King's Landing from the Mad King. Will he be the one to save it from the Mad Queen as well? Maybe. One is certain, huge portion of King's Landing will be burned down by a dragon in the final season. Will it be the Night King and his undead dragon? Will Daenerys at some point decide to overthrow Cersei and use Drogon and Rhaegal to achieve it? Will this be the result of the final battle between the living and the dead, in which Dany's dragons and the Night King's dragon will play a huge role? Let me know your opinion in the comment section down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.